I promise to you, by the end of the next 20 minutes, you will know exactly how to land a sales role at the highest paying tech companies in the world. And I promise you, this is extremely easy once you realize what are the roadblocks that people typically encounter, as they go through this journey, what are the pitfalls to avoid, and then, how to jump over those obstacles. This is in a nutshell what we're going to be covering in today's video. A few disclaimers before we get started. The first one is the process I'm about to show you works whether you're in the US, Japan, Australia, UK, or anything in between, because the process of landing a tech sales role at the most prestigious companies is the same across all geographies. The second disclaimer, I'm not here to convince you that tech sales is the right thing for you. This is more so, this video is more for those, that have decided for themselves, sales is what they want to do with their lives. And they're committed now to getting at the pinnacle of the game where sales rep makes six figures, high six figures, low seven figures. So with that disclaimer out of the way, I'd say let's get started with the secret of a sales career. But before we actually do that, I just want to tell you a little about myself. Give me a second here. There you go. So when I first started my sales career, I was at a company where despite most reps hitting quota, nobody, and I mean nobody, broke past 120K mark. There were no promotions, no growth, just rinse and repeat. Sometimes people were doing it for years and everyone was just really fine with it. I wasn't. So the next year, what I did was I switched industries and joined a different organization. In my very first year, I cleared 150K. In year two, by the way, in my previous org, I was at 75K OT. So I doubled my salary with single move. By year two, I made 180K. And in year three, I became the youngest enterprise AE of the firm. And for those that don't know what enterprise AE is, it is essentially the highest level of sales, where reps manage 6-7 figure deals, and where the average salary is between 250,000 to up to $1 million, depending on how good you are in the job. But the floor is at 250K. Now, here's the crazy part about all of this is in 2022, I actually became an anonymous cartoon on the internet. I'll show you my Twitter. And I've helped basically a couple hundred beginners and mid-career reps essentially do the same, following the exact blueprint that I'm about to show you. So this is me on Twitter, Buchai Cocoon. What I do is, again, I don't teach sales. I'm not here to teach you how to perform in sales, but I'm here to show you how you can break in the very organizations with all the sales rep are just smashing their numbers. Everyone's hitting the quota. And I find this to be a much better strategy. To put yourself in the best environment is a lot more efficient and works better than, just training, focusing skills. Like, I think this is a second step problem that you need to solve for. So anyways, this is what I do. And in a nutshell, like, what I do is I usually help sales professionals or ambitious professionals, even sometimes they're not in sales, go from here to here, depending on, how advanced they are with their career. And I wrote like almost 7,000 posts literally just on that. I'm not going to bore you, with everything that I do. You can read, tweets, reviews of people. You can just ChatGPT my name. But the bottom line is I know I've helped a lot of people, and from pattern recognition, I learned a couple things that I hope, will be helping you to further your sales career. So let's go back to it, and enough about me. Let's make this about you. So let's kick this off with the secret again of a sales career. So if there's one thing you should remember from this entire video, this is it. Okay, nothing, and I mean nothing, will contribute more to the success of your sales career in terms of your training, your skills, your network, your mentors, your compensation levels, your happiness levels, than the margins and growth of your employer. Okay, so you need to be extremely selective in terms of like who you sell for, because just being in that environment will guarantee a certain pace and trajectory for your career. So it is worth putting all your effort in literally just finding that organization. And again, this video is literally about not only finding like those organizations, but then how do you actually convince them to give you a seat at the table, a role. So that's the agenda for today. So essentially going through the process, like there's 5 typical roadblocks to land six-figure sales roles. And what I wanted to do today was 2 things. The agenda is going to be twofold. One is I want to show you what the big picture, of where people, at least all of my clients, usually get stuck in. There's 5 roadblocks. 90% of people that I work with, get flushed out in one of those. So I just want to name them so you can have an idea of where you're stuck. And then the second step of this video is going to be literally just going through actionable strategies to breeze through, those roadblocks. So with that said, that anyone who's trying to, move up market or move into the best tech sales role with the best companies is going to face. The first one is people don't know where to apply. The reality is in 2025, there are less than a couple hundred companies that are worth pursuing for anyone semi-serious, about their sales career. So you need to be crystal clear in terms of like who are those organizations. The second roadblock is people, they can't seem to get a first interview. They know the Microsoft of the world, the Samsara, the Googles of the world, but they just can't seem to get an interview. So that's the second roadblock. Roadblock 3, 4, and 5 are essentially the interview stages. And I'm not going to go so much into depth now, but what I want you to know, the big mistake that people make is they tend to prepare each round the same way, when actually there are 3 different archetypes: recruiter, hiring managers, and business leaders in the final round are actually evaluating 3 radically different things. And how do you want to, pass those rounds if you don't even know what you're being evaluated on? So again, we'll cover all of those, starting with the first one, don't know where to apply. This is the first roadblock, finding the right companies. So what people are missing is really a filtering process to find the best sales organization. And I'm going to give you 3 ways to basically fix that once and for all. The first one, and it's the quickest one, is using a website called repvue. And I hope, if you're in sales, you know what repvue is. In a nutshell, repvue is like Glassdoor, but specifically for sales companies. So what you want to be doing is go to repvue.com, create your account. Let me just log in here. Sorry, I should have done that before the video. Okay, cool. Now we're in. So let's just take HubSpot. And the rule of thumb is before you apply to any company, you go on LinkedIn and you search for sales role, position, account executive, SDRs, depending on, how far advanced you're with your career. The next step, what you're going to do is basically match, reference that role with HubSpot, the repvue, sorry. And there's 2 things that you want to be looking for. One is you want the repvue score to be at least above 83. That's the first rule of thumb. The second is you want to have at least 50 employee ratings. If you do have that, then the company is more likely than not going to be kind of place where you're going to be striking again your sales career, crushing your quota consistently, learning from top reps, so on and so forth. So this is just a quick way, but it's not the most robust. Actually the most efficient, and it's a bit more time consuming, but the best way to find the best sales organization, literally to fast track everything about your sales career, is to follow the money. And what I mean by that is every company on an annual basis, I'm going to explain you the theory and then I'll walk you through a quick example. We can do it together. I'll show you how. Every company, they release a document called a 10K filing, okay? They're the financial statements essentially. And in those documents, they reveal, publicly traded company have to report to shareholders how much has the company generated this year, how much did they generate last year, so on and so forth. And this information is key, is paramount, because if a company, this is by the way public information, everyone has access to that. If a company is growing its revenue line very fast, it means that the company is selling a lot. That means that sales reps are crushing it on easy mode, and those are the very sales environment that you want to be in. So you better basically look up for that information and make sure you're just following the money and, joining an industry, first of all, a winning industry, and second of all, an organization that is winning that growing industry. And I'm gonna give you an example of how to do that. So you can go here and you can just type, for example, Samsara, 10K filing. So you just type the name of any company, okay? And you put 10K filing next to it. Okay. Next step is here, you want to filter for annual filing. This is the 10K. You're going to open the PDF and you're going to go directly to a section called Management Discussion and Analysis of Financial Conditions and the Results of Operations. You're going to go here and you see ARR. So this is annual recurring revenue. So this is the total revenue generated by the company since 2023. And what you want to be comparing is what is the growth of the revenue year over year. So if we look here, it's actually, so 2024 versus 2023, that was, what am I doing? 1,001 divided by. So here the company has been growing 38% between 2023 and 2024. Just so you know, the average tech company is growing by 15%. So this one is growing 2 times faster. That means that you're like practically like 2x more likely to just, crush your quota, get that promotion, because in sales, like you literally get paid proportionally for what you kill and rewarded. And those are like environments where like the company is already crushing it. So again, just make sure you position yourself there. Then, this is for 2023 versus 2024, 38%. Then for the last year, they actually bid that. Oops, what am I doing? Yeah, so they were able to maintain a 32%, like 30% growth year over year. It's absolutely huge. And those, again, are the very sales organization that you want to be joining. This method I just showed you, you can apply it. This is the process of following the money. It's a little bit more analytical, but I promise you that every second you invest in filtering the right companies would provide literally a 10,000 X ROI on everything that you will do there. Another way to basically, follow the money is what you can do is like compare. You can take, for example, 3 companies within the same industries, and compare their revenue growth year over year. And you want to join basically the organization that is growing the fastest. Another way of following the money is you can take the revenue line and then you can divide it by the numbers of employees, because if an employee is bringing more revenue, if the company is able to bring money more efficiently, that means that, on an employee basis, they're getting paid more, because they drive disproportionate impact. So again, those are like just small ways you can use analytical to basically find, again, the right organization. And this is like public information. So do that. Quickest, this is the most lethal, effective way of doing it. The other way of doing this is literally by, looking at the average promotion timeline company, because when a company is able to groom their talent and move them up market, get them promoted fast, that's a healthy sign that the company is growing fast and they need more people, sell bigger deals because the demand is so big. So what you want to have is you want to go on LinkedIn, you find a company, you want to go on LinkedIn and look at the history, of some of the sales professionals. So SDR to ASMB should be less than 1 year, ideally. A year and a half maximum. Above that, I would just say avoid. The promotion timeline for AE SMB to AE mid-market should be less than 2 years. And then from AE mid-market to enterprise, AE should be less than 3. Okay, so those are like just rules of thumbs numbers to evaluate whether or not, sales organization is worth pursuing. So now I will basically cover 3 ways to filter the right organization: a quick one, a financial one, and then a culture/promotion one. They all work. This one is the most lethal. This one is the quickest, and it's totally fine if you were to start there. Okay, boom, we're done with the first roadblock. Let's move on to the second. So the second roadblock that people face is, sometimes they have the list, they're able to build a list, of top companies, and they know the right names and everything, but they just can't seem, again, to get their foot through the door. And there's three reasons to that. Okay. The first one is your positioning is likely weak. Your resume is meh. The problem is the format. There's two problems with the resume oftentimes. One is the format. If you have 3 pagers, honestly, no one reads them, the resume. You need to be extremely succinct in the way that you present information. If Elon Musk is able to have a 1 pager, there's no reason you shouldn't. And also, let's move on from this. The second part today of the resume is literally the positioning. And what I mean by that is you want to productize yourself, the way that you package your experiences in a way that addresses the concerns and nightmare scenarios of the hiring managers. And there are 7 nightmare scenarios that the typical hiring manager has when he brings someone new to his team. And if you don't know what those things are, you cannot, again, productize yourself and then fit the bill and get, intrigue them and want them to meet with you. Going over those, those nightmare scenarios and everything is going to be an entire video in of itself. The whole resume writing. I wrote hundreds of them. I know what works versus what doesn't. I've landed literally 1,000 interviews, and I'm providing you with everything you need to write a crisp resume that commands attention from the top companies in a free course. Okay, I'll show it to you here. You can go, it's inside the cocoon/blueprint. You can leave an email here. You're actually going to get much more than that. You will understand where you're at and how much you can clear, how to write the resume so you can get interviews. We go a bit more deeper about picking the right organization, how to generate interviews with effective outreach, then how to crush those interviews, and then a few unconventional methods you introduce for your negotiation. This is all free. I've put literally months putting into this, but work into this, and I literally wanted to give a chance to people that were committed to this path to really just make it. And I promise you this content is better. It's free, and it's better than most of the paid junk that is out there. We covered the 7 nightmare scenario every hiring manager fears, then how to literally reframe yourself. What are the reframes for your resume with examples of word track you can use? Anyways, this is just the tip of the iceberg. I've already spent too much time, talking about what isn't in that presentation, but I thought it was very valuable. And again, if you want to get really tactical, please go sign up for this thing. We go in a lot more depth than, a single video. So again, coming back here, second reason, basically, people are struggling to land an interview is literally a volume problem, is they simply haven't applied to enough roles. A good rule of thumb is really you want to apply to 5 to 10 jobs every day. And a pro tip is practice on tier 2 companies. Don't go for the top firms that we've selected here from the get-go because you don't want to burn bridges. You want to test conversion of your resume maybe on some, sub-tier company. And once you make sure, that you're landing some roles, then let's go after those ones. The third reason, again, people are struggling to in interviews is because they apply like everyone else. And applying like everyone else means really just 2 things. One, clicking apply buttons on LinkedIn and then praying, God, get a call back. 2 is sending an email to a hiring manager saying, hey, I saw an opening, or maybe a sales rep saying, hey, I saw an opening, would love to chat. Yeah, don't do that. They receive hundreds of applications and messages just like that. You want to stand out. And there are ways, basically, there are scripts, there are ways to better position yourself in the competition. And again, it boils down to just understanding what are those people worried about? What are they concerned about? What is in their world? And then you want to bring those things up front in your outreach. And if you do that, you will connect on a much deeper level. And again, all of those things that I just mentioned here are covered again in the 5 steps, 5 email crash course that I showed you before. The link is in the bio. You can, check it out later. One rule of thumb before we move on, from this is if you apply, to 20 sales position and you get 0 callbacks, it's very likely that, your resume and cover letter are the problem. So you want to keep iterating basically on that level until you see results. So again, in a nutshell, why you're not getting enough interviews is because your positioning is weak. Your resume is meh. You don't stand out. And positioning, by the way, is just a fancy word to say like, why should someone want to meet with you as opposed to someone else that has more experience at better jobs? All of those things can productize yourself again to really like command attention from the right people at these high status companies. It is all explained in the blueprint. Okay, cool. Moving on. So now we move on to the third roadblock. And again, roadblock 3, 4, and 5 are essentially the interview stages. Okay. Here, what I want to double click on just something that I mentioned to you earlier, which is like the main reason people get flushed out, during the interview stages. They go through the hassle of perfecting the resume, of finding the right companies, and then they finally get to the interview stages and they thought they did well, but they get rejected. You get the rejection email. The reason that happens is because they don't know how to prepare these interviews. Like, it's as simple as that. They don't even know what they're being evaluated on. They have like a sense of, of what it actually is about, but that's not enough. They don't have the clarity they need to basically smash them consistently. And this is really what we're going to be covering round by round. So the very first round is HR, okay? And the first question you want to ask yourself is, what are HR like worried about? Okay, what is going on in their world that I can bring them, I can address, that they will love me? Well, HR, the whole reason that they exist is they want to make sure that they save time. They want to be perceived as the people that save time for hiring manager. They want to be perceived as someone who are good at filtering right candidates. And these guys really, like, all they care about when they meet with a candidate is they want to make sure that you're not insane. They want to make sure that the person depicted on the resume and the person they have in front of them are not too different. Okay? So what they will be doing is they will be poking holes in your background. And this is why, like, the way to just address, this hiring persona, this archetype, is you want to close the perception gap between what you say you are and who you actually are. So just get ready to speak to any experience on your resume and really just prepare the basic question. Like, this is so easy. Like, this step, like, I don't understand how someone can get flushed out here. It's always the same fucking question. Tell me about yourself. Why sales? What do you know about our companies? Like, all those things have already been covered a billion times in my tweets. You can literally just use the search bar. I'm not going to show you an example, but just, use the search bar and go for like advanced search, and then like why sales, filter to my account. You're going to get all these information. So again, zero reason to miss out on this interview. The second roadblock is the hiring manager. Hiring manager are in entirely different beasts. They will care about your background, but not so much so. What matters, okay, to these, or what, not what matters, but the nightmare scenarios that these people have is literally just getting stuck with the low performer. Because if they bring, again, a headache to the organization, they're going to be perceived as a headache. And, as a frontline manager, this is a terrible outcome, because if, as a frontline manager, you're not able to recruit well, imagine the impact once you become a director. It's only magnified. So there's a reputation variable, to this equation. They want to make sure they're being perceived as as someone who's able to spot the right talent and then bringing them in. So the shit test that they have, that's kind of the nightmare that they have. Now, the shit test is he will take forever. When you're meeting with a hiring manager, the question in the lingering problem in the back of his head is thinking, that you will take forever to hit the ground running and start contributing numbers to the team. So here, you're not being tested on your background, but what you're being tested on is your ability to do the job at a tactical level. And the best way to neutralize those concerns is not to answer his stupid questions, but to actually walk into the interviews with like one-pager documents in your hand and then slap them on the table that demonstrate how you plan to hit the ground running. This is exactly the process that I've followed with each and every one of my clients. We prepare this one-pager and then we pitch them during the interview. No one fucking does that. Okay, and you will stand out. An example is like literally walking with the 30, 90-day, 365-day territory plan, where you basically lay out how you're gonna own your ramping period, how you're gonna hit the ground running the first 30 days, how you're gonna crush your ramping period by the first 3 months on the job, and then how you will break into the top 10% sales rep on the sales floor by year one. Okay, I've actually put out a tweet just on that. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was just yesterday. Let me show you. Imagine walking into an interview and slap on the table one pager. Again, this is not a year territory plan, but 90-day. And then I go about like, imagine just putting this on a Google Doc and then, walking into the interview. You want to demonstrate that you know exactly what it is that they're looking for, and you have a plan to just, smash and blow out of the water any targets that they have for any recruit. But you want to bring those things yourself. So anyways, this is just one example of an interview assets. There are 4 other ones. The other ones, you can walk into the interview with literally like a lead list, a real lead list for the company specifically that you're meeting with. And you want to basically provide maybe a cold email sequence that you put together to book emails, meetings, with those buying persona. The idea is like you haven't been through a single minute of company training, and you can already build a pipeline for them. Just put me on the phone, Mr. Hiring Manager. Like I can do this. The other thing that you can do is literally put together a pitch script. Like once that you've built a pipeline and you have meeting booked, is like, how do you qualify those leads? How do you run discovery? You can build those things in advance. And another thing, a lot of candidates, unfortunately, like are oblivious to is answering question and presenting, collateral is great, but a lethal way to basically stand out from everyone else is literally by asking the right questions during the interview stages, because you should be in a place where you're like, literally, you should be qualifying who you're working for. Like, you're not here, to take the job and dance for the hiring manager and pray that he hires you. No. You're to maximize your career trajectory, and you're looking for the right sales environment that would allow that to happen. You're committed to reaching the top. So who's deserving, of that, of your time? And the way that you do some of those things, I believe, yeah, this is something I put like a couple weeks ago, I think, thread with literally like examples of questions you can ask during the interview stages. Let's start with, the interview secret nobody talks about. Sorry, what's the one questions candidates never ask but should? What problems keeps you up at night that someone in this role could solve? If you were to not select me, what would be the most likely reason? Where have people who previously held this role struggled most? What unwritten rules govern how decisions really get made here? When you reflect on your time here, what moment made you feel this was exactly where you belonged? The long story short is you want to be able to ask difficult questions. And, there is, as I mentioned to you, like many times, there are tweets, there's thousands you can go through. You can cycle through. It's free. There is the blueprint. This one, if you want something a little bit more structured. And then there's other options, which I can discuss. But again, I don't want to spend too much time promoting my stuff. Just telling you basically where you can find supporting resources, each roadblock, because again, there's level of depth to each one. I'm just giving you like the high levels, the nuts and bolts. You understand like what are the main roadblock, where you're struggling, and what you can do right now to make sure, you get past it. So the final roadblock is the business leader. Okay. So business leaders' nightmares, they're twofold. One is they're concerned of bringing someone to the organization that will water down, the standards of the culture that they built. Okay, someone who's lazy, who badmouth, who brings like a bad energy, push people to cheat and stuff like that. So that's pretty obvious. That's one. The second is not so obvious and probably more important. What sales leaders really care about is something called your executive presence. And executive presence is just a fancy word to say, am I comfortable bringing this candidate in front, to an important client's meeting? So the way that you demonstrate executive presence is, there's a bunch, but I'm just going to give you again the high levels in this video, because otherwise it's going to last forever, and I don't want to bore you, and I want to keep you know, some things we'll go more into depth in future ones, specifically on the subject. So the first thing that you can do is, when C-level speaks, let them finish, never interrupt. I made that mistakes. I remember when I was, coming out of college, I was interviewing with Deloitte. I was going to management consulting. I managed to make the final round. It's really hard for people that know management consulting. They have like business cases. You're competing against hundreds of other candidates. Like this is the job that everyone wants out of college. And I made it to the final round. And I was with the managing director. I remember getting flushed out. And I was told later that basically I was interrupting them all the time. And they didn't feel comfortable bringing me through with a client. They were afraid I would do the same. These people, these business leaders, they're egotistical, so you better, not only are they egotistical, but they also there's a reason, they've reached that level. There's certain knowledge. So it's not unreasonable to just shut up maybe and let them listen. And when they finish a sentence, literally just wait 1 or 2 seconds before you actually answer. So that's one. The second is, please, when you speak with them, when you interface with them, be concise. Don't ramble. When they ask you a question, why do you want to join us? Don't go down like a tangent that you're not sure where it begins, where it ends. Every answer should be literally, here are 3 reasons I want to join. 1, 2, 3, boom. The people is why I want. The mission of the company is what I want. Is why I want. The career trajectory that I've seen, some of your people, achieve is something that I want for myself. Those are the 3 reasons. I'm just giving you, high levels. Just don't ramble. Structure it. Third one is tune down your excitement. It's childish. And the final piece is really just, this is the most actionable part. And then make, again, an entire video just on that. It's called 10K filing. Okay. And 10K filing discussion is, I already told you about that. There is a section, the management discussion. Okay, an analysis. So this is actually a section what I didn't tell you before. We only covered, the revenue line. But in this section, it's actually the CEO that is sitting down and speaking and describing in his or her own words what's the company's targets for this year. Okay, where's the company investing its money to make sure they achieve that? What are the risks that they're, wary of, or they're trying to mitigate? So they're literally building the high levels vision, the organization, and you can copy paste this entire section to ChatGPT and ask it to provide you with smart question you can ask an executive. Why you want to do that is because the job of a business leader is to bring this very vision to life. This is all you'd be doing. So when you do ask this question, you get them to open up about their work, what they know best. Okay, and they will love you for that because everyone loves to talk about themselves. So this is a very easy way to kind of raise the level of the conversation. Again, business leaders are big picture guys. They're not very tactical. So you need to make sure you match that level in the questions that you ask and the subject that you speak about. And again, all of this is very easy. Just find the 10K filings, copy paste, copy the management discussion section, and then use GPT to give you a summary, and then come up with, questions. So recap. I think this is the moment where I kind of bring everything together. So literally all I want to say again before I just go into that section is that there's 5 roadblocks for anyone that is looking, to break into the most prestigious companies. Actually, any sales role is the same roadblock. It's just that those things get a little bit more intricate as you're trying to approach companies, pay the most, that have the best products, so on and so forth. There's more nuance to it. And I've provided you with, again, 5 ways to do that. Okay. Now, what I want you to see is recruitment is a sell, and anything that's a sell should follow a sales process. And if you've been reading through the line of the roadblocks, leads are high growth organization and established players. Okay, your resume is nothing but an ad, and ads have codes to improve conversion. Those were the 7 frames that I mentioned to you. Yeah, the blueprint. So there's format, length, the one pager, and then there's like content that to boost conversion. Human resources screening your resumes are gatekeepers. So imagine when you try to sell, a business owner with solution, and you're speaking with the secretary to try to get through the, to the main decision maker. Well, this is what HR is. Hiring manager is the decision maker that you're trying to close. Interviews are literally a pitch, and you are the product. So this is entirely like a sales process. So when you see it through those lenses, you can actually take the right actions. You can make an irresistible offer that is you. You can build a pipeline. You can build a lead list of top companies. 3, you can basically outreach. 4, you can close. This is the interviews. And 5, this is the part basically where you shine and you hit the ground running after you join the organization. You want to just start with a zinger, but again, subject for another conversation. Just want you to see that this is a sales process. All those roadblocks, working through them is literally working through the deal blockers that are standing between you and a 6-figure offer. Now, next steps, okay, from here on. I'll give you the high levels, okay? And I spoke a lot and went in many directions. This is the first YouTube video, so forgive me, if it's not the most structured, but I give you the meat, and that's what matters. Now, next step is really if you want to get really tactical and land these roles. I promise you, it is absolutely achievable, whether you have sales experience or not. Very first step that I would suggest you is just go and get the 5 email blueprint. It's insidethecocoon.com, okay, /blueprint. I'll put the link in the description. It's entirely free. You're going to get everything that I discussed today, except it's going to be like more actionable, succinct, and easier to digest. For those that want to work with me, because maybe some of you are actually like been following with me for a long time, you've already been through, the blueprint, and you want to throw money at the problem and just, get a role like really fast. I happen to be working with clients. It's all happening inside school. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Yeah. Anyways, if this is something that you want to be doing, my suggestion to you is book a call. I'll leave a link inside at the end of this video to book basically a call together, a strategy call. And we can have a conversation and see like what I can do for you, what I can commit to getting you at. Yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for watching my first attempt at YouTube, and I hope you liked it. See you soon. Bye now.